Hello, welcome to the Story Studio podcast. Fun episode today. We normally do one of two things. Either we tease you guys with, well, there's something really interesting going on and we can't talk about it, or we don't mention it at all and just kind of act vague and spooky, like, ooh, there's something going on, but we're not going to. But today we're actually going to tell you about one of those things, which is pretty cool. So now there are some reasonable restrictions, which we'll get to, but it's kind of a cool announcement and kind of a cool project that we'll be able to follow in the weeks and months and year to follow. But we'll get to that in a second. So should I say what it is before we get to something cool, or should I just like tease people, tickle people? Cool project.
Well, you can go tickle and I'll continue tickling during my something cool anyway. So just go ahead.
All right. Well, since you know what you're going to say for your something cool, why don't you take the tickle thing, which Dave is, I know, getting all aroused right now thinking about it.
Dave, get your hand out of your pants now.
Why do I have a hat on?
Okay.
Wait, I don't understand
I don't understand either, but
there's like a tickly gnome under that hat. I just know.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. For those of you who can't see Dave, he's his rapper persona, Easy Baked today. He looks incredibly good. He looks delicious, actually. My something cool is actually the thing that we get to talk about, because it has been very frustrating over the last year as we've shifted gears to not be talking about our projects. I know it's annoying for people, and we get emails that are like, we're not going to steal your ideas. And to be clear, it's not about anyone stealing our ideas.
Of course somebody would say that.
We're not worried about the ideas being stolen. It's a matter of well, this project just wasn't ours to talk about yet. And a lot of our fiction projects, we're worried about corrupted also bots. It's not about idea theft. It's about, we put ourselves out there for a long time, and it really did damage our business, almost destroyed our ability to sell books without changing our names. So we just have to be
book specifically.
The fiction. So we have to be more careful this time, and we are. But now we have a project that it doesn't have algorithmic IP tied to it. Like, there's a lot of stuff we could talk about here that's exciting for us.
Well, there's another reason we don't talk too, and it's because we can't. We're restricted. There are other people involved. There's confidentiality. There are contracts that need to be signed. So this isn't a case of like algorithmic, but therefore was for a long time a case of it wasn't totally our party. It were other people involved.
So that's my something cool.
That's the tease. So we'll talk about that. So, wait, that's your something cool?
Yeah, that we could talk about it. My something cool was a really great trip. Johnny and I were in LA again this week, and it was an awesome trip. Just professionally, personally, I had a really good time. I'm really happy to be home again. Traveling does wear me out, and there's been 3 trips in the last 1 month, so that's a lot. But yeah, it was awesome, and I'm really excited.
Dave?
I have nothing cool this week, unless you want to hear me tell you a Fortnite story.
Oh, I think we need to hear that.
No, I don't want to hear a Fortnite story. Dave, are you follow? No, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I play Fortnite with my son, and I'm really bad at snipers.
Okay. I forgot for a second you were talking about Fortnite. I was like, shit.
I'm really bad at sniping in games, so I've been forcing myself to kind of play as a sniper because it's such a thrill when I actually land a shot. So this dude killed a teammate of mine really, really far away, and then he does a loser dance, take the L, where they do that. And I fucking sniped him from halfway across the map. It was awesome.
Well, he was doing the dance?
Well, the joy was I got to show I was so excited. I recorded the clip to show my son. So I bring him in, I'm like, check this out. Look what I did. He was like, okay.
He was like pussy
all the time. And I just felt like, thank you.
Wow. So the best thing that happened to you in this week was a moment in an artificial reality that no one cared about.
Let's face it, artificial reality is better than my reality.
Oh, that's telling and sad. So thank you for sharing, Dave.
Well, I was also rereading our book. Can I say the name or no? Would that ruin the book?
Yeah.
Well, the one thing you can't do is stop in the middle of a story and say, "Can I talk about it?" Because then if we say no, it's just one of those real shitty things that happens.
Right. So just say I was rereading some of our old work too.
I was rereading some of our old work, and holy fuck, it's so damn good. Like I love it so much. Like,
who are you and why are you on our podcast?
I want to see it on TV.
I love Dave getting hard on his own work. That just doesn't happen enough. That's awesome.
Yeah. Anyway, okay.
Dave, were you following at all? I know you follow a little baseball stuff. Were you following the Astros cheating story at all?
Very vaguely. Yeah. What about it though?
Oh, nothing. I just got.
We were just getting live updates.
I got a lot of live updates from Ethan, and then when I got home, I got all the live updates. I had to watch a lot of videos about like.
Oh, I'm not surprised that they're cheating.
Yeah. Well, he's incensed because that was a really big World Series for him. He hated that the Dodgers lost to the Astros, and now he found out they're cheating. He's like, I'm just so angry. So anyway, yeah, Johnny, anything cool?
Well, my something cool is all wrapped up in what today's show topic is. So I know that that's a bit of a cheat, but it is the most dominant recent cool thing. So why don't we just go into that? Because
yeah, may as well.
And there's a lot to this. So I'll start at the beginning. Can I start at the beginning? We haven't told the story before, right?
We've never told this story. You can start wherever you want.
Right. So I feel that there's a lot of lessons here because if for anybody who went to the last Smarter Artist Summit, and I do mean the last as in the previous, but also the last because there isn't another Smarter Artist Summit. Now it's Story Shop's doing their summit. But if you went to that, we talked a lot about it's all about relationships. Like, so we had Derek Fredrickson, our LA partner, one of our LA partners up on the, we have three, I'm realizing, up on the stage. And we were talking about how it's all about relationships and making the deals. And it's just about knowing people and being cool to people and all of that stuff. It's not what you know, it's who you know, that sort of thing. And this is a perfect example of it. So 2 years ago, a year and just a few weeks, Sean and I were at the Austin Film Festival. No. 2 years ago, we were at the Austin Film Festival for the very first time. We hadn't gone before 2 years ago.
So this is 2 festivals ago, not 2 years ago. It's actually like 12 months and a week or something.
No. It is 2 years ago.
Oh, I see what you're doing. Okay,
yeah. So 2 years ago, so 2017's Austin Film Festival. We were just like,
oh, you are starting at the beginning.
Well, because I think it's a really interesting story, and there's a lot of lessons here. So
no, you're right.
We were just doing reconnaissance. We were just like, we're not going to try and meet anybody in a strategic way. We're not going to hand out business cards or do any of that sort of shit.
We don't have business cards. Actually, we do.
No, we do. We just don't use them. And we actually have several kinds of business cards that we don't actually use. And, but we were only going to try and learn things in a just-in-time sort of curiosity way. Like I wasn't going to take extensive notes on TV and film because we just weren't there. But we did see, there was a very very intro panel, which was like, how to work the conference, which was like a pre-panel panel for newbies. But then the very first real panel we went to was, I think it was on like alternate ways to be known or something. Do you remember what the topic was, Sean? It was something
it was like breaking in by being yourself or something that isn't quite that dumb, but that was
right. Breaking in, and you have a room full of, 100 people shoved into a little room of writers who are just desperate to break in. And so we were watching, and there was one guy on the panel. And I remembered him because he had kind of an unusual name. His name was Jonno, Jono. And I was, but he said some really cool things. He had this story about going to, and I can say this publicly because he said it publicly, about he was working with somebody at Glee. I don't remember what his capacity was on the show Glee.
A PA at the time. I mean, this is real entry level stuff.
Which is like a step above a janitor, pretty much. Like a PA is a gopher, go get my coffee, production assistant. So, but he went into his boss's office and the spreadsheet was open for the invite list for the Golden Globes.
And went into his boss's office, he sneaked into his boss's office. And so what does any like self-respecting peon, let's face it, do when they run across something like the Golden Globes invite list on your boss's office you've sneaked into? That you're not supposed to be in, right?
So what do? Well, you of course add yourself to the invite list, but also +1, which is the real kind of middle finger of the whole thing. He didn't just add himself, it was himself and a friend. And so that's how they went to the Golden Globes. And he told this story and some other stuff. And Sean and I were sitting back and we were like whispering back and forth. And we were saying, we should have this guy on the podcast. Like he's a hustler. He's interesting. But we had gotten in kind of late. We were toward the back of the room. They're way at the front of the room. And of course, a panel gets mobbed when they let out. So we're like, well, maybe we'll run into him later and we can talk to him and strike up a conversation because he feels like our people. Well, fast forward through the entire conference, that never happened. And we weren't going to go like stalk somebody, but we didn't run into him. So that just never happened. Now 1 year later, so a year ago and a few weeks today, so 2018 Austin Film Festival, we went again and we're in the badge line, picking up our badges. And I look over and in the next line, so I'm standing in the end of the alphabet line, and I look over into the middle of the alphabet line, and I don't know, in front of Sean, just behind Sean, I was like, hey, I think that's that guy, that Jono guy. And he's like, how would you even know that? Like, we were way at the back of the room. We didn't even talk to him. And I said, I don't know. He looks really familiar because that just seems to be something I'm pretty good at. And he left and he got his badge. And I said, okay, but if we run across him, I'm going to talk to him again because I'm pretty sure that's the guy. And so we went to the Driscoll bar area and we were just sitting around, like just hanging out, not being part of the conference. And the dude walks by. So I kind of raised my hand. I flagged him down and I said, hey, is your name Jono? And he goes, yes. And I said, did you do a panel a year ago on whatever? Yes. Just wanted to let you know that we thought it was great. And he kind of did the thing where we were sitting down and he was standing up and he was just being polite. And we talked to him, well, we run a story studio, all this. And then there was some point where he got interested enough to sit down and stop being polite and actually start engaging with us. And so throughout the festival, a few times, like we talked to him for, I don't know, an hour and a half that time. And we talked to him the next day and the next day. Then on Sunday, we were like, we've done enough Austin Film Festival. There's no reason for us to go back in. And but we already had scheduled to meet another friend of ours that we had already booked. He just happened to be in town during the film festival. He wasn't even going to the festival. So he said, well, shit, I don't even really want to go. It's Sunday. I've done enough, but we have to go. So we did. We hung out with it was Danny, our friend Danny. And then we were like, let's just take one final lap and go home. And we made this one final lap and we ran into Jono again. And we built rapport with him over time. Like I think we had some coffee and stuff and he dug our vibe. And so we just launched into like our most absurd stories at this point. And Sean started telling him about, he had just gone to a mastermind and met this guy named Jesse Cole, who owns this below minor league baseball team, like F League, whatever that the bottom tier is, called the Savannah Bananas. And he's this crazy guy. He wears a yellow tuxedo complete with hat and yellow shoes. Every day he travels or is at home in Savannah. And he does all these ridiculous things, which we'll get to in a minute. And Jono thought this was hilarious. And he goes, wait, this is a sitcom. We said, I know. And he goes, no. It's literally a sitcom. And then through some stuff that we'll talk about here, because I've had the mic for a long time, this past weekend, it basically is going to be a sitcom now, like 99% or whatever. I don't know what the statistics are, but there was a big event that we'll talk about during this show, and then we'll have these guys on later, where the bottom line is that it looks like we have a sitcom going to production that we are part of, not major writers on, but creators of, I would say.
Yeah, I love everything about this story. So there's a couple of really cool little details here that kind of tie into the overall lessons too. So Johnny's right. The big takeaway here is that it looks like we're going to have probably this time next year, we'll be streaming our show. Like the first thing that Sterling and Stone had anything to do with, there's a lot of traction on it. And and
to be clear, we can't really say where we think it will air because there are many options and because that's the one thing we can't really share.
Yes, but
they're big places.
Yeah, but right, and there's enough interest from enough places that
Pornhub.
There it is. It seems. I mean, basically Hollywood is bullshit until it's not. That's just the way it works. But with the number of people that are interested and the level of interest, it just seems impossible that nothing will happen. So a couple of other cool elements to this story is Johnny and I went to the film festival Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And then we were just kind of done. Like there wasn't a lot more to do. There weren't any panels on Sunday that we were super excited to see. And we're both family men. Like we wanted to be home with our families on Sunday. And so oh wow, I really, really, really am sad for all the people who didn't just see Dave's face. So yes, we wanted to be with our family on that Sunday, and we would not have gone downtown. But the only reason we were downtown is because our friend Danny Inney was in town, happened to be at the Driscoll, and he wanted to talk business with Johnny and I, which he does when he's in town about once a year. And so we were only downtown to have like a morning walk and talk with Danny. It had nothing to do with being at the festival itself, but it's all about relationships. This story is about relationships in so many different ways. So we were there because of our relationship with Danny. And then before we're about to leave, we decide we should take one more like walk around the Driscoll, see if there's anybody else we have a relationship with or want a relationship with that we should talk to. And that's when we saw Jono for that last time. And we had been very slowly over a few days developing a relationship with him. We went to a couple of panels. We just talked here and there. And it was never like the kind of like gross networking thing where you're just like glomming onto somebody because you hope something's going to happen.
That's the real point. At no point did we pitch him at all, including the time that he picked up a pitch.
Right. It was all just funny conversation. And when we were talking, Savannah Bananas was not a pitch to Jono at all. In fact, we were talking about how we were only there to talk to Danny and how Danny was a part of this group and that how amazing this group was, which is where I had met Jesse, because it's this really highly curated experience. And I didn't know Jesse before that dinner. Jesse Cole is his name, and he owns the Savannah Bananas. And I was at the same table as him for this curated dinner. There were 6 of us. And he was just telling these wild stories. So the one that we told Jono that like had first, sparked his interest was about, so Jesse, right, it's a really, really, really shitty baseball team. And he basically figured the way to do it was to turn it into a circus. And what's the quote, Johnny?
And this is a little bit of like nesting loops and stuff, but Jesse's story with the Savannah Bananas, which you can Google for, like they're very newsworthy. They're all over the place. And it's entertaining reading too, is that they basically picked up a failing baseball team. And I think they tried to run it as a baseball team for a little while, if I remember right. And it just wasn't working. And so Jesse decided that he was going to go entertainment first, which is a big theme with Jesse. And we'll talk about what the Bananas do and stuff, but he said, we can no longer be a baseball team. We have to be a circus, and maybe a baseball game will break out.
Right. And so that's there's very much the aesthetic. Like,
and he repeated it in person this week. He said, we're a circus with 9 intermissions for the innings.
Right. And when he bought it, it's a 4,500 person stadium. They were lucky to get a few hundred people at the games. Now they're sold out for years, ahead of time. It's something that families go to. It's just this crazy, crazy thing in Savannah. And the story that he was telling me he had a lot of them, but the one that I thought was so funny and I had to repeat to Jono was that there was a game where, it was right when he was first starting to do this, and all the other teams just hate this guy's guts, and you can imagine why. So in this particular game, he had brought in a mariachi band, and they were playing like not in between innings, but like while the other team was at bat. And so
it's like the Harlem Globetrotters meets baseball.
Yes, it's exactly it. So it's a total show, and the other team got mad and they complained to the commissioner, and so the commissioner came in and said, you slapped Jesse on the wrist and said, you can't do that, and he fined him $100, which Jesse just thought was ludicrously hilarious. So he wrote the guy a check for $600 and said that this should cover the next 5 times. And so like they had Digging a China night, and in Digging a China night, they like actually buried a trip to China on their on the field, except it wasn't like there's no accommodations or
it's not even round trip.
It's
a one-way ticket to China.
Goodbye.
And it was on the field, and they did it while the game still had innings left to play. So I don't know if you guys know anything about baseball, but a bunch of like shovel holes on a field while there's still a baseball game going on is not the best idea.
So
I'd love to see how much he has to pay for insurance.
I'm sure it's all baked into the price, but really he has built an amazing business, an amazing character, amazing human, and so
their cheerleaders are all senior citizens, and they call them the Banana Nanas.
They have their mascot is Split, Right.
Jono went to a Savannah Bananas game and threw out the first banana.
So Jonno immediately saw this as a workplace comedy. His first, Parks and Rec, Office, but even going back to Taxi, which Taxi is, I think it might be his favorite show.
I wished I lived in Savannah so I could go there and be like those two old guys in the Muppets, just saying stupid shit.
I'm sure we could arrange
Heckling.
that. We can totally arrange that.
David heckling.
So Jonno was just like, yeah, this sounds like a show. But I mean, look, there's a thing called conference talk. And this very clearly felt like conference talk. We're talking about this amazing sitcom, and yeah, it's going to happen. And sure, Johnny and I drove home and thought, wouldn't that be cool if this was really happened and it was really a sitcom? And also some background here. It's not like we were talking to somebody with no ability to get things made. Jonno's actually sold several pitches, and we don't know his name now because all of the stuff is in production, but he has movies coming out that we will all be watching in a few years. So he could get this pitched. And over the next year, it became this thing that we had no idea what was going to happen with it, because we would get on the call and we would talk about characters and what it would be like. But then, there'd be this dead end or that dead end, or for a while it looked like the project was going nowhere because everyone in Hollywood vowed that they would never be making anything in Georgia ever again, and they'd be, pulling out because of their abortion laws. And then that lasted for like an hour and a half. Hollywood gets very incensed about things. It doesn't last very long. And then, do you want to talk about what our next big break with it was, Johnny? Because that's pretty cool.
Right. Yeah, I was actually going to talk about that because it would be. I forgot to hit record again. Getting really bad at this, so I'll just have to let them know again. All right. But basically, that's the piece that I forgot to. That I can see. I can imagine a lot of people listening to this, and there is Hollywood is bullshit a lot of times. We talked about having an option on Fat Vampire. I'm not saying that's bullshit, but despite really strong start, that isn't sold yet. It's still active. Like I still think it will sell, but it hasn't yet. Like that's the sort of thing that happens. But this
Hollywood limbo,
or
hell.
And right, Hollywood is
being
mostly
ghosted.
limbo, right? It's like the universe is mostly dark matter, right? All the things we can see, and then everything in between. That's how Hollywood is. It's mostly deals that don't actually ever get made, or deals that are made and then production never happens. There's so much limbo in Hollywood, it's ridiculous.
Right. So some of you might be listening to this and thinking, well, okay, so they say they got a sitcom, they think it's going to sell. That's very cute. That's very optimistic. And some of you may even have had deals. Like we know that some people in our audience have been approached about, they want to make this into a movie. So it'd be really easy to be like, well, who knows? The reason that we're so confident is because of the piece that we haven't told you guys yet, which is, you can look this up. Imagine Entertainment, which is Ron Howard and Brian Grazer's company, does a little incubator, a little IP incubator. And this is the third year they've done it. It's called Imagine Impact, because it's Imagine Entertainment. And the Imagine Impact program is this kind of highly prestigious IP incubator, like such that people pay a lot of attention because it has the pedigree of Imagine, and it's very highly selective, curated, professionally shaped content, which we can talk about in a second. So for instance, it's I think they had 4,500 applications to that program this year. They ended up selecting 17. So it's, like a very small percentage that actually get in. And Savannah Bananas, from our understanding, was sort of considered the unanimous favorite even going in. It was an 8-week program, and they just had their pitches. And after the pitches, then the room is filled with, the presidents of the streaming services and, high-ranking representatives from the networks. And so like, Hulu and Disney Plus and Netflix and ABC, NBC, and whoever else, like they're all in that room. And so even though it isn't an auction, it has an auction atmosphere because you have so many heavy hitters over such a small number of highly anticipated projects. Do you remember the sales percentage for the past years? It was something high, like 95% or 90%.
80%.
80% end up getting made, not just sold, if I'm correct. I don't remember for sure.
I don't think anything from the first 2 years was sold and not made, which is another impressive. Like they're serious buys.
They're serious.
Because they're not just, see, a lot of ideas get sold in Hollywood. And a lot of times people are also buying ideas so that other studios can't have those ideas. Like there's a little
putting
bit
your
of
foot
too.
in the door is cheap for these people.
Right.
And put yourself in the shoes of a Netflix or a Disney Plus or something like that. And you're looking for content. We as creators, it's easy to be like, it's really hard to get seen. There's just a deluge, an avalanche of people. I mean, literally when we were at dinner, our waiter was a singer trying to break in. Like that's every waiter and shop clerk in LA has a project and a screenplay or something that they're trying to do. So if you put yourself in the shoes of, like I said, like Netflix or somebody who's trying to acquire content, that's actually a super hard side of the coin too, because there is so much stuff out there. It's like going into the worst parts of the KDP Select Unlimited dumpster fire and trying to find your next great read. Like it's in there somewhere, but there's also a lot of shit. So going to this kind of curated experience, like I don't remember who their speakers were this year, but if you go to the website, like J.J. Abrams and Paul Feig, and like these are people who go to this and are like speakers, and they call them shapers, who help work one-on-one in a mentorship role with everybody. So because of the pedigree, they do want to kind of jump on this. So from what we're understanding, it went off very well. We got a few very big nibbles, which, again, we can't share. There was a lot of interest. And I guess we're understanding that over the next 2 months or so, everything kind of shakes out and they'll basically be deciding which offer to take.
Right. And then there'll probably be rewrites after that. For those of you who are just like curious about the process, after a deal is struck, there's like, no matter who buys it, it's impossible. Well, not impossible, but highly, highly, highly improbable that they'll be like, that is exactly what we were looking for. No changes. We'll take it as is. They'll have notes. They'll want to change it. They'll want to shape it to their audience and whatever. But the script as is super, super strong. It's funny. It has like really great emotional moments. You know what? Like we should probably wait for the actual kind of hook for the show for when Jonno's a guest, because he should tell you that. It's really he developed that. Like we helped with some of the characters. We helped with a lot of stuff, but this is really his show. He will be the showrunner. He will be taking care of all of this. And he came up with a very, very cool hook. Because if you think about your protagonist, you need to identify as the viewer, right? And the problem with the protagonist of Savannah Bananas is that he owns a baseball team. So it's kind of hard to root for him as an underdog if he's the owner.
And to be clear, guys, there's a real nonfiction, like a real thing in the real world of Jesse owning the Savannah Bananas. But the sitcom, by definition, is going to diverge the way that the Sookie Stackhouse books diverged into True Blood, or Dexter books diverged into Dexter. Even though those are fictional properties, we're starting with the sort of anchor of a real thing, and the Bananas will be involved to some degree. It's part of their brand going forward, but it's not the Jesse that's in the show will not be the Jesse that's the real person. And the antics of the people in the show are not going to map exactly to the real antics, but it will draw ideas.
Right. I mean, really at all, because they're just very different. And I mean, you see that just in the pilot. So the Jesse in real life obviously knows a lot about baseball, is very interested in baseball.
Didn't he almost have a baseball career? Wasn't he injured and couldn't make it? Or doesn't he have that story?
Yeah. So baseball was part of his life, but for this, like the Jesse in the Savannah Bananas sitcom doesn't even know about baseball. So like one of my favorite lines in the script has, somebody asking him, well, who won the World Series last year? And he says, America, right? So it's pretty funny how little he actually knows about baseball in the sitcom. So they're very different people, but there's some common DNA there with both the team and Jesse. But the point is that it's really interesting how much development there was and will continue to be. And even if it gets, or when it gets bought, there will probably be a 3-month period of rewrites, and then we'll go into production early next summer. And it looks like it would be in the fall is when we would be watching it under ideal time frame.
Yeah, so a year from now, we may be watching this on TV. Now, I do think there's a lot of lessons to this story, so I want to kind of delve in. And again, we'd like to have Jesse and Jonno on. So with Jonno, we can talk kind of story and the process of developing the property. And with Jesse, we can talk about T-shirt cannons. Like he's a live wire. Like you'll see, Jesse's amazing. But for us here now, I think that there's like focusing on the lessons and the quirks of the story are very interesting to me. So we have been actively shopping IP for a little over a year now to kind of try and take our first steps into TV. So I think we told you guys about a trip to LA that we took about a year ago this year when the American Film Market Festival was going on in LA. And we took a bunch of meetings. We were actively trying to pitch Invasion, which hasn't moved yet, but that doesn't mean that it's dead in any way. That's Hollywood for you. But those were pitches. Those were us trying to do something. Now, the first thing to actually go here, it looks like, is going to be something that, number one, was never part of our IP catalog. We didn't develop Savannah Bananas beforehand. It didn't exist as a book or anything. And it came about through a networking event. And it wouldn't have happened if we'd have been networking with a capital N. It wouldn't have. I know these people. I know even if it had made it to Jono with a business card trading, networking, let's pitch you sort of thing, I don't think it would have made it past Jesse. Like I don't think Jesse would have bitten on that. And you probably see why when we get there. But there's other lessons here too, in that as far as the script itself, Jonno has done pretty much all of the work. Sean and I were helped to shape it initially. We talked a lot about character. We hopped onto a call and discussed motivations and stuff during the course of the project. But 80% plus is Jonno doing the work. And Sean and I have just kind of been support and cheerleaders and co-creators. So what are we looking to get out of this? Well, I mean, I'm sure there'll be some sort of a payday, but it'll be less for us. Like that's a whole thing. Don't worry about that. What we care about is the credit. What can we use to be able to say that we're behind something in some way, shape, or form? So like if we get a created by credit on this with Jonno or with Jesse or with both, that's great. Because then suddenly Sterling and Stone is on the map as the creators of a successful property, which we can then leverage, or just sort of automatically generates enthusiasm that makes people kind of perk up when they hear us in the future. Oh, I heard about you guys. I heard about Savannah Bananas. Maybe I'm a little bit more interested in what you're pitching right now. And so I think that makes it interesting too, right? It's very different from like selling an option.
Oh, for sure. I like the attention, and I really like that. I like the amount of cool people that we've been able to meet just by kind of constantly turning the wheel and leaning into this experience. So, for example, not all these shows through the Impact program will get picked up, but even within the ones that do, Jonno's basically like, yeah, I know some of the best writers around now. So if you think about the filtering process to go from 4,500 entries to 17, right? Like that's a really great room, and you spend 2 months with these people every day. Well, this is a great peer group. And then now we get to know some of those writers by extension. And we keep saying this, but our business really is the relationship business at this point. We're telling stories, and we want to know cool people and work with cool people and be able to expand what we're doing, through the network effect. And I really appreciate that. There's the direct effect, like we might, be able to go to LA and sit with Imagine ourselves because we have this connection. But even beyond that, just everything leads to everything else. And I think that a year ago when Johnny and I decided to really start taking these steps and get into LA and get into not going there and aggressively trying to make a deal, because that's it. We're not trying to make a deal. We're trying to make a relationship. And we're not in a hurry. We don't want to sign something just to sign it and just to get some action. We want to make sure that when we eventually find our right partners, they're partners, and it's a relationship, and we'll be making things for many, many years with them. And so stuff like this just really helps, because right now, in this still very early phase for us, we're brand building. We're saying that our creative energy Sterling and Stone, what we want is for somebody out there to understand that we've got a writer's room and we've got writers who want to tell stories, and we can pair them with the right projects. So like there's a couple people in the studio who are very interested in what happens here. If the sitcom takes off, do we get to write books in the world? And can they be a part of that? Can they be a part of the writer's room? Can they be a part of the script development process? And as we grow, that's exactly what we'll be doing. We'll be nurturing our writers and growing our writers in both number and ability so that we can pair them with the right opportunities. And this just feels like there's something both kind of comic about it, the fact that this is our first IP and it wasn't even internally developed. That's really probably going to go all the way, but who cares? Like the fact that it still will encourage our network effect is awesome.
So what are well, I want to hear what Dave has to say about this. I'm just sort of curious. And first of all, actually, how much of that did you know, Dave? I don't know how much we've shared with you.
Oh, I knew a good part of it. Sean had told me. I didn't know all the little details, but the broad strokes. I think it's cool. I think it's cool as hell.
Yeah, I think the idea is to get our foot in the door is a lot of it, and this could be a really good foot. Somebody that we were talking to this weekend is like her father's real connected in the industry, say, and I know that one of the things that she didn't say it to me. I feel like she said it to you, Sean. She was like, "It's just one relationship. That's all you need," and that's the sort of thing that's really proven to be true. Because again, I go back to if you work with like if you're on the other side from us, the acquisition side, and you're working with writers and you're working with IP, why would you not want to keep going back to a well that is like if you work with us and we're cool and we aren't dicks and we provide good stuff and we have more to offer, like why wouldn't you go back to us? I think it's the same reason like, Tim Burton always works with Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter, and because he knows them, and he works with Danny Elfman because he knows Danny his music is really good. So I think in the same way, it's like we want to find that relationship where working with us is as good for them as it is for us, and then it's easy. Then we've got that funnel.
Yeah, and Jonno is very much a relationships person. Also, like you could just see it in the way he communicates with people
effortlessly as well.
Yeah, he's a giver more than a taker, and he's a communicator, and like he's just a good guy. And like we were talking about what the best play would be, what kind of deal do we want to take, and so for example, one of the questions is, do we want to be? Would we rather have 10 episodes and a lot of control on streaming, or would we rather have a network deal that's 22 episodes and less creative control for sure, but also there's a lot of, there's more money in 22 episodes than 10 episodes, especially if you get to 100 episodes, and there's residuals for a long time to come. So that could be a much better deal. But I love that Jonno, like us, is never thinking about the immediate deal. It's like, how does this deal affect all the other deals? Because Jonno's looking at this, it's a different situation for him. For us, for anyone in the company, this is it's an addition to what we're doing. It's not our full-time life. If this takes off, and I don't just mean the series getting made, because again, I think I'd be shocked if we didn't at least get to pilot. I think we'll get to full season order, and let's assume that the first season takes off. Then it could be the next 7 to 9 years of Jonno's life. So that's it's a much bigger thing for him than it is for us. But some of the criteria that he was talking about, I find really interesting. So, for example, the big benefit, I would have thought that he would have really liked the idea of like 10 really strong episodes, where you see that in streaming. You see 10 episodes versus 22 episodes. There's just a little bit less filler, right? But the big benefit of a 22 episode season is that the writers are all then full-time jobs. So, they take their summers off, but they're there. Like that is their job. And so you retain your best people. You don't have as much turnover on a show that only has 10 episodes and then a break. Those people are full-time. So they often move on to other projects, or, you just don't have as much consistency. And Jonno's like, well, I want to build a family of writers. and that means working with the same people, and that means 22 episodes could really help with that. So it's interesting to look at what are your objectives and what are you really trying to accomplish with the thing you're making.
I do like that how us as a group, we haven't chased anything really.
Never.
We've always been true to what we like to do and building genuine relationships and not taking the quick or easy road on anything. And sometimes it's frustrating.
Often it's frustrating. Yeah. Let's be real.
But when you make genuine connections and things feel like they work out the way they should, I like that a lot. And writing in TV is, having a show is my ultimate goal more than movies or anything else. I think that's where I've always wanted to be. So if this helps in that's awesome. If not, we just keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah, I'm sure it helps. I mean, we've gotten really great in the last year at just turning the flywheel and knowing that, it's just a matter of being consistent with our ideals and not bending back on them, because it is hard. It's hard to just keep your eye on it and not chase things, Dave, right? Because there are a lot of things we can chase, and we get a surprising amount of interesting offers that sound good. They sound like, oh, if we just put our attention into that, 3 months later we'll all be rich. But if we put our attention into that and then we don't, then
we could write a show about all the weird offers we've had.
we probably could.
Something that Dave said, I think, is worth sort of shining a brighter light on, and I did allude to it earlier, and Sean did too, actually. But just to put a finer point on it, is you talk about writing for TV. We're writing stuff that we hope ends up on TV in an adapted format, but we don't write for TV. I mean, we've written a few pilots and like to pitch things that are going to be on TV. But just to remind you guys, this is something. There's no book for this. Like we aren't actively writing this at all, and it was something that we helped to develop as a concept, as an idea. And I've told a lot of family about it and stuff, and my mom will say, well, are you gonna go out to LA? Are you gonna be in the writer's room? Are you gonna write the episodes? Are you gonna, and the nature of TV writing is that, to be a staff writer, or to be especially a showrunner, like Jonno would be the showrunner on this, you really do need to live in LA. That's not something you can do remotely. Like you can definitely write for the TV and film industry outside of Hollywood.
Wait, I can't showrun my show from Florida? Oh,
but you can't showrun from Florida. You can't actively be in a writer's room. So, I don't know. The situation is going to kind of dictate like whatever really ends up happening, maybe different from sort of what we've predicted. But so far, it's sort of looked like, Jonno will assemble a writer's room. And it does sound like we sort of have an open invitation to kind of show up and kick ideas around or something. I could see if we really, really got into it, and if like union laws don't forbid it, I could maybe see like, hey, let's come in and we'll, try to lead write an episode. I don't know. I mean, that might just be stupid and obtrusive. But the point is, we aren't going to be in that room day to day.
You all move to LA once I get to Austin. I'm going to fucking kill you.
I don't want to live in LA. Sean basically has lived in LA.
Yeah, I've lived in LA. I think that we should have a place in LA at some point. Like we'll probably do enough business down there to make it. Yes, I think that we'll spend a lot of time there, but it doesn't feel like home base to me anymore. It feels like I feel like more of a tourist than a citizen.
So this is just one more example of collaboration. I mean, so when we originally got when I say we, I mean Jonno originally got the lead on the Imagine Impact thing. He called us kind of a little sheepish, and he was like, guys, I don't really know how to say this, but he said they will allow up to 2 creators for any project, not 3. So he was going to be one of them, obviously. And then he was like, I'm going to have to Sophie's choice between the 2 of you guys. Sean, either you can come do this 8-week program, or Johnny, you can come do it, but not both. And we were like, oh, well, thank you for being concerned. Thank you for, not being a little sheepish about telling us this. That's very sweet. But neither of us can do it. It's just not practical or sensible for us to move, to LA for 2 months and stop turning the flywheel on everything that we've been doing to go and do this, even though it's an amazing opportunity. As a matter of fact, that's one of the things if you look back at our decision to step away from Story Shop, we told the story of like some great opportunities that we've said no to. And then we turned around and said, well, we can't keep putting energy into Story Shop if we're making decisions against things that are much more aligned, like Imagine Impact. But that does mean that we're basically, Jonno is working as a partner and a proxy sort of. He is our LA wing on this, and he's doing most of the work. So he should get the lion's share of the reward and attention and accolades and all that stuff. But we just want enough of a connection to be able to use the connections that come from this and the natural sort of snowball effect. But also, like I said, once we have a credit and we basically have an IMDb listing, and it'll say, us as creators or whatever the credit is for Savannah Bananas, then suddenly we're much more interesting to look at because we have that credit. So that's our why on this. And I think that that's important, because if our why was like maximum money or to show run a TV show, like that would be a very different way we'd approach it.
Yeah, and also this goes a little bit to Jonno deciding whether he wanted to network with 22 episodes or something else with 10 episodes, and how much creative control versus the right writers' room and all of that. Like, there's so many things to kind of decide. How do I prioritize this? But for us, we need to always take a back seat here for this particular project. Now, we'll have projects in the future, I'm sure, where we're in the driver's seat and what we need to do what's best for us and our company and our writers and all of that. But what's best for this particular thing is, we're just not important. We're third. By design, we're third. Jesse has a very specific brand that he's building, and that needs to be protected, so that's really important. But the most important thing here is, again, this is Jonno's life for the next long time. This is that's the biggest consideration. So like we were talking at lunch about two separate offers. There were two particularly interesting bites that came in immediately. There was big and there was bigger. And the bigger was very exciting for us as a company. The way we would be able to leverage that, that sort of attention is very powerful. But it probably would not have been the best thing for either Jesse's brand or for Jonno as a showrunner. So even though it would be obviously what was best for us, it's 100% wrong for the project, because it doesn't serve the two people it needs to serve first most. So all of those things are kind of important to weigh, but you have to know what you're trying to get out of it and what your why is and where you fall in the hierarchy of the collaboration, because a great collaboration is always win-win, right? No matter how many people are in there. If there's three parties, it should be win-win-win. And I think that we need to understand that our win exists if the show is great and if the show does what it's supposed to do for the primary people involved.
Yeah, right. So I'm kind of not sure how to close this story down, because it will be ongoing. Like I said, we will have the other parties on here to talk a little bit more nitty gritty, and maybe that's it. Maybe that's just that it's a survey and it's an open box, and stay tuned.
Yeah, we'll know. I mean, the stuff's happening really fast right now. At the end of the week, it was all about seeing what offers come in, and it was really fun to see the first couple on the first day, and there were another 14 pings of interest on the second day. So, and I mean, we're just back now, so this is all like real time that you're hearing this. And that's exciting too. We haven't been able to talk to you guys about stuff in real time for a while. And we're very much looking forward to getting back into that, because that's fun and natural for us. And, we just want to find that spot where we can do it without it hurting us. And this has been very exciting, and I'm really curious to see where it goes and what other doors it opens. And, as far as stuff getting made there's no algorithmic anything. We can, once something is, our partners are okay with us talking about it publicly, we get to talk about that all we want. So that's pretty exciting.
Right. Well, so that's it for the Savannah Bananas. But this, I get to make an announcement that we haven't made on the podcast yet. Anyone want to guess what it is?
Oh,
Dave is becoming a Rockette.
Dave, are you going officially with your rapper name Easy Baked?
Yes.
And he's going to be Easy Bake the Rockette. It's going to be really on many levels.
And I got a lo-fi album coming out real soon. So.
Yeah. I really like the idea of lo-fi.
I want Dave to have a second renaissance as a mumble rapper. Dave.
No, I don't like mumble rap, but I do like lo-fi.
The second announcement is actually that our sequel to Write, Publish, Repeat is going to be coming out December 12th. Is that right?
I think so. I know it was the 10th on the calendar, but that's because I have everything on a Tuesday on the calendar.
If it's the 12th, then it's exactly a month from Savannah Bananas Day. The 11th, says Neve. Sorry. December 11th is going to be it's our real sequel to Write, Publish, Repeat. We said in the past that Fiction Unboxed was the sequel to Write, Publish, Repeat. No, it really wasn't. It was an entirely different thing. I think we said that about iterate and optimize, but that really wasn't, because that was really more like.
Oh, so you lied the other two times.
How do they know we're not lying
this time,
real. Johnny? We need
because
to know that.
Because this time, this book is very much in the vein of Write, Publish, Repeat, whereas Fiction Unboxed and Iterate and Optimize were not. It is. What's the tagline? Anybody remember it off the top of my head, so I can't go look for it?
Oh, damn it. Hold on.
All right. Well, nobody remembers.
I think the tagline was, "This is really the sequel to Write, Publish, Repeat."
Yeah, this is really the sequel. That's the tagline. It's okay. So Neve says it's the new rules for self-publishing success.
Oh, that's good.
That's what Neve said. She beat you to it.
The old cover I have says the tagline will go into this very spot here.
The new rules for self-publishing success, and it is fiction-centric in the way that Write, Publish, Repeat was just a little. Write, Publish, Repeat was very nuts and bolts. It very much told you like what levers to pull, like what the industry was like, how to get started self-publishing, what you need to know about vendors and so forth. Fiction Formula covers an updated version of a lot of that. It's what we've learned in the past 6 years or whatever it's been, but it's fiction specific, and it focuses a lot on the craft and how because next year, currently on the calendar, we're doing 181 new releases, and I believe 25 of them are nonfiction. So the lion's share is fiction. So, 150 plus new fiction titles. So it's really about the process that we've learned for and now that's with a studio of writers. That's not the three of us, but it is the process that we've learned, like what are the smart ways to optimize that process and sort of best practices. Things we've learned about, getting through writer's block, the 3-act structure, 4-act structure as we imagine it. And then in addition, a lot of the things that have updated and changed since Write, Publish, Repeat about the marketplace itself and smart author strategy. So it is a true sequel, finally, to Write, Publish, Repeat. And that's coming out, like I said, December 11th. And we already have a pre-order page up. If you pre-order it, you'll see on the pre-order page, you'll enter and you get access to a webinar that we're doing, and that'll be genre therapy. So you guys have heard us talk a lot about genre therapy. Most authors write in the wrong genre, and therefore it's costing them in terms of productivity and joy and sort of efficacy with the material. And every time we've run people through genre therapy, it's transformative. So people have asked us a lot about it, but we don't do it publicly. And so this is one where we're going to do a genre therapy webinar, and you get that if you pre-order the Fiction Formula. So that's our way of sweetening the pot. And you can get that at sterlingandstone.net/thefictionformula. sterlingandstone.net/thefictionformula. And that's coming out in a month. Anything to add, or did I do that really, really sufficiently?
That was very sufficient. I was wondering why we've never done genre therapy on Dave, though, and then I realized it's because he would break it.
Your genre makes me sad.
Yeah,
that's what GenreBot says. That's my GenreBot impression.
I think he's responsible for the new Dead Baby genre. There was never one before Dave.
Yeah, Dave's doing a Fiction Formula sort of. He's doing an adjunct book that's called the new. Damn it! I just forgot you said something that sounded like the tagline. It was going to be really amusing. All right, well that's that. Like I said, stay tuned for more Savannah Bananas stuff. Pre-order the Fiction Formula. sterlingandstone.net/thefictionformula. And I guess we'll see you next week, and maybe we can get Jesse or Jono on. We'll get them soon, and we'll hear the rest. So thanks, everybody, for listening.
Adios.
We'll see you later. Bye-bye, guys.